Have you ever had a week where you go down maybe a certain social media rabbit hole for the whole week? You're just constantly distracted by social media, maybe YouTube rabbit hole, or just you binge watched a whole show during that entire week and you got constantly distracted. You sort of realize that everything you've been consuming has been programming almost, or making your brain think in a certain way. For a practical example, you're in a professional social situation, or you're in a family gathering, maybe someone says something slightly related to whatever you've been consuming, and this phrase or a joke comes to mind that you can't really say because nobody else would get it, and then you realize maybe I shouldn't have done that this whole week. So the problem with all these algorithms and all these every single platform we're on now has some sort of algorithm that it wants to feed us, social platforms specifically, is that once we interact with a certain thing, it's learning about us. It knows what we like, knows what we dislike. For example, if I politically lean this way, it knows that it's going to feed me more of that. If I lean this way, it's going to go. It's going to feed me more of that side, and it creates sort of a bubble. And it's really hard to get outside of this unless you actually do something manually, start liking purposefully other things, or you on Instagram specifically, you can click interested, not interested. I use this to feed myself landscape and mountain videos, just for example, because I really like those and I want it to only feed me those. But getting in this bubble is sort of trains our brain to think a certain way. It's constantly feeding us the same information. And the problem with this is most people today, they'll be fed maybe a specific influencer over and over. And some people who are too addicted, they'll just take the opinions, they'll take the ideas from this person, and they'll just use it as their own. They won't even think about it. They won't form and reflect on what they're actually consuming. They'll take it and then they'll spew it out as their own opinion or their own idea. So, given that this is happening to almost everybody, what is this new hottest skill on the block that everybody should be maybe thinking about diving into as everything becomes more AI based? There's less and less need for human labor, and basic human thought is simply just the hottest skill on the block is creativity, with a emphasis on illogical creativity. Those ideas we have that don't really make sense, or they don't make sense. You have to think AI systems, they work logically, they're trained a certain way. And those random ideas we have, those random thoughts that sometimes end up being huge ideas, maybe huge companies, those are the sort of ideas that we need to sort of train our brain to come up with. So imagine you're an employer. You should be looking for someone who can come up with, uh, like I said, illogical, creative ideas. They can think differently. People who can think differently outside of the box, or people who simply have the skill of ideation or creation. Now, I know you might not even think of this as a skill right now, but it is something you can train your brain to do. You can train your brain to come up with new ideas if you're constantly thinking of how can I do this differently? How can I solve this problem in a different way? It trains it, it hones that blade of how your brain performs when encountering a situation where maybe you need to go around it rather than brute force through it. Now, the reason why this is the hottest skill on the block, just to be simply creative and think differently, is because companies will use more and more AI systems, and they'll just use those to do basic tasks. And why would they need humans? They need humans to be able to think creatively on how to use these systems and how to come up with new ones. Also, it is a rare skill nowadays. It's becoming more and more rare because as we're consuming more information, we're leaving less room for actually coming up with ideas. We consume more and more every year via social platforms, or really anything, more food, more junk food specifically, and we're just becoming a more unhealthy society brain wise. And the only way to really come up with truly unique ideas is to have silence and to really think about stuff. A perfect example is that everybody on their breaks nowadays, maybe at work or at school, rather than having time with their own mind, they'll be consuming information via their phones, whether it's news for older people, blogs, or social media platforms, YouTube, etc. Now, what would be my advice to actually hone this skill is that I've said this a few times on the channel before, is all you need is 15 15 minutes of silence per day. This is how you actually spend time with your mind, how you can come up with new ideas and reflect on what you did during the day. Most people are scared of spending time with themselves, with their mind. It's just you. You have to recognize you are, your mind is you. It's just, we're just so used to stimulation that it's hard to spend time in silence and spend time with ourselves. And just to give a practical example and sort of explain it further, what is illogical creativity? What is that creativity that maybe AI will never be able to perform? It is a really good example is when you're doing a project at home. Maybe you're working on a car or you're doing a woodworking project and you don't have a specific tool that is normally recommended. The way when you normally figure out your own way of doing it, you don't go to the store and buy that tool. You find you Frankenstein up something else and you fix that problem without actually getting the right tool. Those sort of unique ideas that we can form just based off of testing and trying, those are the things that represent illogical creativity. So this was just a short little fast. I just came down here to make this video because it came top of mind. If I can leave you with one thing today, it's that go spend 15 minutes with yourself, with your own mind, and maybe reflect on whether or not most of your ideas are coming from an algorithm, or maybe you need to change up your habits when it comes to those things, what you're consuming, and whether how much the stuff you're consuming is shaping your ideas rather than you coming up with them yourself. And ask yourself this question: when was the last time you came up with a truly unique creative idea yourself? As always, if you have your own opinions on this subject, or maybe you want to chime something in, or you have any sort of opinion, put it down below in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I love to hear how other people's brains work and what sort of opinions or thoughts they have. It's truly the amazing part of being able to connect with so many people on here. Just let me know, put it down here. You can send me a DM or an email if you prefer a private sort of way to do that. But if you like this video, please like, subscribe, helps me out, lets me know you like this sort of content, and I'll see you later.